So today we'll be talking about an interesting topic to me, which is how to help fathers to become more involved in the process of raising outstanding children. We had a webinar about 10 days ago tagged how to help your children excel in school. And in the webinar, we said that one of the critical success factors in children's lives is their father's involvement. Research has shown that when fathers are involved in their children's lives, the children perform better in school, there's lower level of delinquent behaviors, they are more balanced in their social and emotional well-being, and quite a number of other proven advantages of having fathers involved actively in the lives of their children. So I felt it was not just enough to tell fathers that they should be more involved in the lives of their children, but it was also good to let fathers know the why and how to become more involved in their children's lives. So first of all, I'd want to say now that there are a lot of reasons why fathers should be involved in their children's lives. First of all, men and women are wired differently. Men are more logical, while women are more emotional. So you find out that the women have the tendency of being overly protective of their children, trying to cover up for them sometimes, might be unwilling to expose them to risk-taking and things like that, because they have a stronger emotional side. Whereas men are more logical. They are more prone to taking risks. So one thing that can do for the children is that the father can help them, to reason more critically, be more problem-solving oriented. Because if you think about a woman and a man, they are wired so differently. Let's say, for example, that a woman has a problem and she comes to confide in you. She's confiding in you not necessarily because she's looking for solutions, but because she wants you to empathize with her. This is why we say that women are quite emotional. But the man is wired to provide solutions. So once you approach a man with a problem, he's thinking of how he can help you to solve that problem. So when you have both the father and the mother involved in raising children, because of their different parenting styles, you'll find out that the two of them are complementary. The man brings his logical side, the woman brings her emotional side, and together they complement each other to raise children that are balanced and outstanding. But now what happens? You find out that in these settings, most times, men are not as involved in the lives of their children as they should be. And this is because of a variety of reasons. One of such reasons is because of the cultural realities that we find in our midst. Most times there's this notion that men should be strong, men should just go out there and make the money, and women should fend for the children. And because of that culture undertone, you find out that men do not make themselves available. Then in some other cases, you find out that the way someone is brought up informs his decision. If a man grew up in an environment where the father was not totally present, chances are that he will export that to his own home and in raising his children too, because these things happen subconsciously. So men might even make up their minds that they will not be like their fathers, but somehow they might not even know when they start playing out that same role. So based on one's upbringing, you might be of that belief that you don't need to be there for your children as long as you're providing for them. And that is actually a wrong notion, because you'll be shortchanging your children. Even if you look at the Bible speaking in Genesis 18 verse 19, God was speaking about Abraham. He said that he was sure that Abraham would raise his children right. He would instruct his children right. And Proverbs 1 verse 8 also says that the father will teach and the mother will instruct, or rather the father will instruct and the mother will teach. That means that there is a role for both the father and the mother to play in raising the outstanding children. Please indicate if you have anything to say. If you concur with what I'm saying, please let me just see you on the comment section, so I'll know I'm not talking to myself. So I've talked about the culture, I've talked about upbringing. Then another thing is about responsibilities. Sometimes we find out that men actually have their hands full. Let's say, for example, a man has to work in another city and the family is living in another city, and the man is away from home for long periods of time. He might not be available to provide that fatherly care. Or sometimes he works long hours, and by the time he comes home, the children would have gone to bed or something. So responsibilities can be another reason why men are not fully involved in raising their children. But I also believe that even with responsibilities, there's always something to do to make things work. And we'll talk about some of those things later on in this session. Then another thing that I want to raise is about priorities. In some cases, men do not just place that as very important in their prioritization. They might not feel that it is very important to be there for the children. Some of them will just say that what do they have to do with the children when they have their mothers? There might be times that the child has a program in school and the father is available, but he just feels that he'd rather rest at home than go for that program. So that is all about prioritization. And this arises from the wrong notion, the misconception that men are not really needed in raising the children. So please, the first thing that I'd want to encourage any man to do is to understand that he has a critical role to play in the lives of his children. And this role cannot be filled with by the mother. We understand that there are some cases that it's unavoidable. For example, the case of death, and sometimes because of separation or divorce. But as much as possible, it's critical for a balanced upbringing for your children, for the father and mother to be involved in the process. And then another thing that science has also proven is that one major way to get a man more involved in his children's lives is by ensuring that the relationship between himself and his spouse is nurtured. Someone once said that the best gift a father can give to his children is to love their mother. And you find out that in a relationship where the man and the woman are in very good terms, it plays out in their relationship with their children. The man becomes more involved. Think about it. But when there are issues, the man will more or less step back. Then another reason I forgot to mention why some men are not really involved in raising their children as much as they should is because of the woman's attitude. Sometimes women have this overly protective thing about their children. They feel that it is only them that can take care of their children properly. And they try to protect the children from the man. And sometimes, if they allow the man to do something, you can imagine it, allow the man, whereas the man is the father of the children. You find women saying things like, first of all, this child I carried in my womb for 9 months, I must say that I've been guilty of that on some occasions. You find women being overly protective. No, you spoil this, you do that and all that. And the man just steps back. Or the man might put in some effort, and then the woman starts to, speak negatively or complain about how he did this well, he didn't do this well, and things like that. So that's another thing that can discourage men from wanting to be a part of raising their children. So like I said, the first thing to do is to ensure that the relationship between the husband and the wife is nurtured. Because once the parents are close, you find out that it will also affect the children's upbringing positively. So I want to encourage every man and every woman watching to work on your relationship with your spouses. Because your marriage is not just about you. is not just about you. There's a higher purpose for marriage, and one of those things is to raise godly children that will bruise the head of the serpent. So sometimes we have to just let go of ourselves, of our desires, because sometimes we feel that our desires are not being met, and that will affect a lot of things because we are thinking of ourselves. But please, let's think about the children sometimes, and then make deliberate efforts to work on cementing our relationship, and our children will surely be better for it. And then for the women, I'd want to encourage you, if you want the man to be more involved in your children's lives, please try to lower expectations. Try to lower expectations. When he makes an effort, celebrate it, appreciate it. Don't look down on his efforts, no matter how small or how big you feel it is. Even if he makes a mistake, please just appreciate the effort. We always say that motivation comes by positive reinforcement. When you appreciate him for the little he has done, he will do more tomorrow. Secondly, let's reduce the gatekeeping. Even though we are the mothers, they are their father's children. They are the seed of the father. So as far as God is concerned, he will hold the father responsible for how they turn out. Your duty as a wife is just to, or as the mother, is to help the man and not to take over everything. So with that regard, I want to encourage you to let go sometimes. Do not take over the whole place like it's just you. It's either you or nobody. Excuse me. It's either you or nobody. Understand that the father has a role to play, and the father is responsible enough to play that role. And I assure you that your children will be better off for it. So that's for the women. Work on your relationship, one, and then allow him to be a part of it. And then also be smart and wise. If you want him to help with something, you shouldn't be bossy about it. You must find a way to speak with him in such a manner that he will understand and, empathize. Then be reasonable too. We understand that they can have very busy schedules and all that. So we shouldn't have unrealistic expectations. Try to work with a schedule that works for both husband and wife, and try to maximize every available moment. And then for the men, the first thing is for you to understand that yes, you have a critical role to play in the lives of your children. I always say it. I know how my father's involvement in my own life helped me to turn out right. And I feel that maybe sometimes when men grow older and become more mature, they find out the things that are actually more important. They find out that relationships, family relationships, trumps, running around, and some other things that are outside that look like they are quite appealing. So that is the truth. You have to try to prioritize and make out time for the children. That is the first step. And then I think that it's also important that husband and wife should sit down together and develop a parenting plan. Develop a parenting plan. I've always said that it's important that every family has its own value system. What are your beliefs? What do you promote? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in respect? Do you believe in, courtesy? What are those things that are important to you? Do not leave things to chance. Do not just assume. Make a decision with your wife. Agree on what the parenting plan is, how you want to go about certain different things. And then try to schedule activities, family-related activities into your day. Don't take things by chance. If, for example, you have your family meetings at night before you go to bed, or maybe during your devotions in the morning or something, just make sure that there is some time for bonding, and make efforts to get to know your children. Sometimes men can be overbearing. Sometimes men are just seem to be high-handed. So there's a need to also show empathy to children. And one other thing that men do, which is likely as a result of culture, is putting up a tough face no matter what. Never wanting to be vulnerable. You just want to show that you are strong, nothing gets to you, and sometimes you almost also put up that air of perfection. And you might see yourself telling your children things like you have to man up and things like that. It is important that you are vulnerable with your children. While you cannot expose them to all your challenges and concerns, they need to understand that you are not perfect as well. They need to know that they can come to you if they have concerns. They need to know that they are not up there and they are way down there. And they need to hear you express your love for them as often as possible. Say, I love you. It won't hurt. You know, you create your world with your words. The more you say it, the more it becomes your reality. The human beings are also drawn to touch. Be very generous with the hugs with your children. Be very, very generous with the hugs. Find time to play with them. Find time to laugh with them. Find time to encourage them. Let them know that you are proud of them. And take deliberate steps to ask questions about the things that matter to them. And use the strategy of open-ended questions. For example, you see your child at the end of the school day. You don't use closed-ended questions like, how was school today? Fine. Have you eaten? Yes. You could use questions like, okay, so what did you have for lunch? How did you enjoy it? Well, what happened when you went out for break today? Who did you hang out with during break? So what happened in math class today? Use leading questions that can elicit discussions with your children, and try to be consistent. So when you prioritize, because I'm rounding up now, it's supposed to be a very short session. When you prioritize and schedule your times with your children, they will understand when you can't afford to be there, because there are times that you can't afford to be there because of your job. There are times you can't afford to be there because of other engagements. But if the children already know that your priority for them, that they are priority for you, they will easily understand when you are not available. That's just the truth. So I want to quickly read the comment here. Dennis said, I think with emotional detachment, it's something we were brought up with as men in Africa. On the other hand, over here in Europe, men adjust to being very emotional and show care to their kids. That's very true. That's what I was saying about the impact of upbringing on how men relate with their children. But the truth of the matter is that we have to let go of our past and choose to do the things that will benefit our children. We can't pay negative things forward. Saying I love you to your children, it means so much to them. Let it be freely said at home. You know, it doesn't reduce your manliness. It doesn't. What happens, another thing that research has also shown, is that when men are involved with their children and they express care and compassion towards them, they raise children that are more compassionate. Some of the people that you see that are very violent and very angry out there, they are just trying to let out the anger and the hurt that they have been harboring in themselves because they have not had fatherly care. So that's the truth. So whatever we do in the lives of our children affects our generation, affects our world in the long run. So please, that will bring us to the end of the session for today. The most important thing I've said is that we have to let go of every mindset block that has told us that as men you don't really have to be there. Once you provide for your family, you're good. We have to let go of that. We have to let go of that myth, as it were, that as a man you shouldn't express emotions. We also have to understand that we should let our children see our vulnerabilities sometimes, so they will understand that the world is not perfect. And when they know of your imperfections, it will be easier for them to come to you when they have problems. And then most importantly, have a good relationship first with God and with your spouse. You have to do the parenting thing together, because it's like a lock and key arrangement. There is something the woman has to bring. She brings her emotional side, the man brings his logical side, and together they deposit a balanced outlook of life in their children's lives. So those are some of the things to do. So today, choose to prioritize. Choose to make out time to be there for the things that are important in your children's lives. Choose to make out time to talk with your children. You should actually schedule family meetings. And like I always say, it's not a time for putting your children down or telling them the things that they did and didn't do. Just discuss their plans, discuss about life, their goals. Just love on each other. It makes your children to be more secure. And I tell you, if fathers can be deliberate and rise up to their responsibility, the world will be better for it. Thank you so much. Primary here says that these days women are as busy as the men, but still create time to play the role in the life of their children. That's true. Like I said, it's all about prioritization. When you just understand that your children need you and it's important that you are there for them, it will really go a long way. And for my fellow women, I plead with you today. Stop being that gatekeeper that will protect the children from their fathers. Allow the children to reach out to their fathers. Allow the fathers to have the time with their children. And then another thing, in the parenting plan too, you have to agree on discipline, because another thing that women do, because of their emotional side, they can start countering their husbands in front of their children because of some decisions that the spouse has taken with regards to discipline and all that. Always know that it's important to project a united front before your children. If for any reason you have any disagreement, you can step back and talk about it when the children are not there. So thank you so much. I believe that to raise holistic, outstanding children, every aspect has to be touched. It's not a one solution solves all kind of thing. I'm really, really grateful that this was useful to you, and if you can, kindly drop 1 or 2 comments about the things that stood out for you, and more importantly, for the men that are here, the action points the actions that you're going to take going forward after this session. Thank you, Dennis. You said you've picked up some valuable takeaway points and will implement them going forward. Please, can you share what are those valuable takeaways? Could you help me share in the comment section? Shuka, I think during the early years of the children, men might have to tone down their ambitions to help spend time with their children. I don't know if I am wrong. Well, that would be nice. I just wish, in fact, the society also has a role to play, because sometimes in the work environment, nobody is really waiting for you. But outside, like in the UK, you have paternity leave of 2 weeks. Sometimes they understand the role of family and they try to tone things down. But here, nobody is really listening to you. So you have to find out what works for you. If, for example, you're a man and you don't stay with your family, you can leverage on technology. You can have your WhatsApp calls, whatever kind of video calls, so you'll be able to speak with your children. Just make it as consistent as possible. So even when you're not there, they will not miss their absence so much. So that's the thing. You just have to find out what it is that works. Mommy, thank you so much. Very useful and timely interaction. Thank you, Mommy, for your support. I really appreciate you. Then it's okay, logical versus emotional thinking. Very important. The two together brings about balance in the lives of the children. Not scolding each other in front of the kids. Awesome, awesome. All right, thank you so much. I think we'll sign out now. We appreciate your support. Just want to remind you that we are here for you. We are your partners in raising outstanding children. Don't hesitate to reach out. Peradventure, you need any kind of counseling or what have you with regards to raising outstanding children. And the replay of our webinar, How to Help Your Child Excel in School, is still available for people that might want to order it. We actually have a number of positive reviews coming from that webinar. I think you can also benefit from them.